This is a video about what is Tantra, really. Hello, this is Wake Up with a video about Tantra. What is Tantra really? One of the reasons for this channel is to clean up some misunderstandings and misconceptions, and I already made a video, link is below, about what yoga really is, because most people seem to think that Hatha yoga is yoga. This is not the case. Hatha yoga is one form of yoga and there are many, and actually it's redundant right now. It's nice, it's a nice exercise if you like. It's especially good for learning how to breathe, but otherwise the main reason is to clean your nadis and your chakras, and there are easier ways nowadays. The same with Tantra. There's a tiny aspect of Tantra that deals with sexuality, but it has basically nothing to do with it. Tantra has a special view on reality and on enlightenment. But before I'm going to explain this, what it really is, a few more words about Hinduism. What is Hinduism? Actually, there is no such a thing as Hinduism. Hinduism is a term for all non-Christian, non-Islamic and non-Judaism religions in the whole subcontinent of India, given by the British conquerors. To assign one name for all religions of India, for all spiritual practices of India, is like saying that all religions of the Mediterranean and Europe are called Mediterraneanism or Europism. Christianity with all its sects, Islam with all its sects, Judaism with all its sects, then pre-monotheistic religions like all the Greek and Roman religions and German religions and Gaelic religions and Norse religions and Mithras cult and Egyptian religions and everything one thing, and then call it Europeanism. This is what happened to Hinduism. So there is no such a thing as Hinduism. In India there have been hundreds of different traditions. And two of the main traditions are called Yoga and Tantra. Another one is called Buddhism, which has been strongly influenced by Yoga and Tantra, of course. Especially the Tibetan Buddhism was very much influenced by Tantra. So just as there are many types of yoga, Hatha yoga, Raja yoga, Jnana yoga, Bhakti yoga and so on, there are different types of Tantra. But the theme that they have all in common is that they are non-dual and that they're not influenced by the quirks of our aggressive civilization of the last 5 to 10,000 years. Most religions nowadays have come into existence after the start of civilization. Civilization meaning city building, agriculture, industry, slavery, and so on. And most of the larger religions and spiritual practices that had been in existence before civilization are more or less extinct now. Except Tantra. Tantra is a pre-civilization religion or spiritual practice that still exists, that has been molded, of course, by civilization and by philosophy and religion, but there's still something left of this primordial wisdom that has not been tainted by the civilizations of growth and slavery. So, what is it? The basic premise of Tantra is that all is one. There's only one thing, but it has different layers of subtlety and grossness. And then there's one force of creation that we can call Shakti, for example. And this force of creation is the same than Maya, the big illusion. How can it be otherwise? Who else would create Maya? And this is why, in contrast to yoga, Tantra doesn't believe in renunciation and asceticism. From what? If everything is the divine, there's nothing to renounce. And this has led to some extreme sects that explored drugs and sex as spiritual practices. But this is not the main message here. The main message of Tantra is a bit similar to Bhakti Yoga, which means devotion and surrender. You empty yourself of disturbing thoughts and emotions and so on to be filled by the divine. You want to be an empty vessel so you can be filled by the divine. And also that there's nothing really bad about your body and your mind. They're also part of the divine. How can they be bad? And there's nothing to achieve either. In yoga, there's something to achieve by practice. Practice the energy flow of your body, or practice your willpower, or practice your devotion, or practice selfless works. In Tantra, there's no practice, there's only experience. And of course, there are different kinds of techniques that can help to empty yourself and to experience more fully. But those are secondary. Sri Aurobindo and Meher Baba both have incorporated tantric thoughts and concepts into their teaching. Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga and Meher Baba's system that was also influenced by Sufism, for example, which has very similar concepts somehow. This whole thing of Sufi Baraka is a bit similar to the Tantric Shakti. But this whole Shiva Shakti and Purusha and Prakriti stuff, that's a distraction. Yeah, it's this dual thing that's not helpful. Male and female, positive and negative and so on. It helps in describing certain things, but actually it's a distraction and an oversimplification. The main message here is oneness, not duality. It's all made from one and the same stuff. And the only difference is one of subtlety. It's like with the gross world, the subtle world and the mental world and the divine world. They're all the same. It's just you have to be able to see them. There are different frequencies, like light, for example. You can see different colors or you can't. People who are asleep, they can only see black and white. And if you wake up, you start to see colors and then more and more colors until you can see the whole spectrum. Thus, in Tantra, we also don't have this problem of a body-mind separation or the problem of a human-God separation or nature-God or human-nature separation. It's all not there. You also don't have the problem of thinking of Maya as a bad thing, of the body as a limited thing, or mind as a bad thing, or the ego as a bad thing. They're all just aspects of the one divine which have their use. They're there for a reason. The only thing to learn is to not use one tool for something that is not made for. The mind is made for calculating and for separating and for discriminating. The mind is not made for most other things. It's totally useless for that. You cannot solve everything with thinking. It's not made for that. It's only made for calculating. One of my teachers once said, the only thing the mind can really do well is counting change. You buy something, you get some change in return, and then you count if you got the right amount of change. That's it. So everything that has to do with mathematics, great. Everything else, no. You need other tools for that. You need to develop your heart. And with develop, in Tantra, they don't mean you have to practice and achieve something or to improve something, but to uncover. to discover. It's like Star Trek, yeah? The spaceship Enterprise, exploring new worlds, strange civilizations, and so on. But of course, like yoga, also Tantra is looking inside, not outside. That is anyway the heritage of Indian spirituality. That they made a science of internal exploration, which is a much more complex science than the Western physical and chemical science. Because Western science is based on mathematics. So it is based on a dual code, just like computer science, zeros and ones. Yes and no. But in the yogic and tantric sciences, everything is possible. There are no limits. And since the human being is part of the divine, not only created by the divine, but also part of the divine, it can also access the divine. The main difference is that in yoga, you have to do something to achieve something, and in Tantra, you just have to open up, to let it happen, to stop resistance, stop resisting the flow, to feel the flow of the universe more fully, more complete. And there's nothing you have to change for that or improve for that. Just have to open up and let it happen. It's not a fight. The mind is a distraction, but it's not the enemy. Same with the ego. The ego is self-conservation, self-preservation. So it has its use also. It's just that you can't use it for anything else that doesn't have to do with self-preservation. It's not made for reuniting with the divine or to recognize that you are the divine. The ego is a defense mechanism that is useful in living together with other human beings or with wild animals. But to connect to the force of consciousness that is all-pervading, that is everywhere, you first have to permit the possibility that everything is really one, all is one, and all is well. As Sri Aurobindo puts it, all phenomenal existence resolves itself into force, into a movement of energy that assumes more or less material, more or less gross or subtle forms for self-presentation to its own experience. And matter is the presentation of force which is most easily intelligible to our human intelligence. Further, Sri Aurobindo writes, to reach this perfection, we have to become aware of the divine Shakti, draw her to us, and call her in to fill the whole system and take up charge of all our activities. And this indeed is a very good description of enlightenment. Many people think that enlightenment is to reach some stage of superpower, to be Superman or Superwoman. It's not. Enlightenment is to give up your personality and let yourself be fully guided by the divine. Have total trust in the divine. There's no one left to judge. Enlightenment is the dissolution of all personality. There's no one left once you're enlightened. There's the hull of the human being still running around and being an instrument of the divine consciousness and force. So think about it if you really want that. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching and subscribing or joining me on Patreon and sharing the videos with your friends. And see you soon.